Just talk about your recruitment. Obviously, your head coach, a legend, Steve Spurrier. Steve Spurrier Jr., your assistant or your position coach, if you will. Just talk about your recruitment in South Carolina. What made you come down and choose the Gamecocks?
It was actually towards the end of my high school career. It ended up being between North Carolina and South Carolina.
Mm.
And what it really boiled down to, obviously wanted to play in one of the top Power Five conferences. I wanted to compete. I wanted to play with the best of the best. And then my recruiter at the time was Jay Graham, running backs coach. And just the feel that I got from South Carolina versus the feel that I got from North Carolina based on, who they wanted, how they approached me as a recruit. It was pretty much, I asked a couple questions and the answers I got back, it made it pretty much a no-brainer. I ended up committing to South Carolina my junior year on the way home from North Carolina spring game. So I ended up going to North Carolina for their spring game. No reason why. It was just a last minute decision to go there. Because the last game I went to was the South Carolina game. So after a couple of questions there, asked South Carolina the same questions, and I got the answers that I needed and called Jay Graham. Actually, I think it was the next day. I made a decision on my way home, called Coach Graham the next day and made the commitment, verbal obviously, but I was always excited I remember the first game I ever went to as a recruit was the Vanderbilt game. And, a lot of people might not chalk up Vanderbilt to be at the time, a crazy competitive game, but that was my first SEC game. And I was in awe at just the environment that Williams-Brice had. And I remember my mom telling me that, she saw the lights go off as soon as I got to that game. And as the rest is kind of history.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say, when you were there going on your visits, I'm sure that's really when Williams-Brice was at its peak. I mean, I think I was probably at that game you were talking about. It was just a pure madhouse. I mean, you can obviously attest. You were there on the field. I mean, it was a pure madhouse. But what was the relationship like in the first interactions with Steve Spurrier? Because I've had some of your former teammates and guys that just played wide receiver under him, and it's honestly really funny to hear the stories because, everybody knows how tough Steve Spurrier is on his quarterbacks, but he's damn near as tough on his receivers as well. Like some of the stories I've heard, Mo Brown has told me some of the horror stories of, if you drop the football, like he just doesn't accept that. Just talk about, some of your stories or just your first interactions with Steve Spurrier and kind of just your first impressions of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally like he is. Everyone asks me, is Coach Spurrier really like he is on interviews and on TV? I was like, that is him. He doesn't change. I remember actually one of the first, I think it might have been my first time there, or towards like when I was kind of getting known as a recruit there. Spurrier's meeting with a whole bunch of families, a whole bunch of different recruits, and I don't know if he had met my sister yet, but it was me, my parents, and my sister there. And I think he thought that Madison, my sister, was my girlfriend. So that was like the kind of first introduction that she had with him, which is always a funny story that we go back to. But yeah, I mean, he can, in the film room, he can make you feel this big if he really wants to. Dropping a pass, if you don't, I mean, they took curl routes very seriously. That was Junior's favorite route. That was, menu 5. That was like their favorite play. And if you run it wrong, at the wrong depth, if you drop the curl, you gonna hear it. And I mean, there was always an entertaining segment of meetings and with the offense with Spurrier because he's just very animated. You don't beat around the bush with anybody, especially the quarterbacks, like you said. So it was definitely a fun time to be a player under Spurrier.